Did an extraterrestrial entity truly visit Earth 75 years ago? Why has Roswell become a key symbol in UFO lore and public fascination? What evidence supports the theory that aliens were involved? Join us as we delve into the story that captured global attention, the Roswell incident. The history of this event, along with the stories, beliefs, and conspiracies it inspired, has been analyzed extensively in newspapers, blogs, and books. However, revisiting the origins of the event can help unravel the chain of events leading up to the crash, the roles of those involved, and the immediate aftermath, allowing us to better separate fact from fiction. So, where do we begin? The story starts in the summer of 1947. The world was recovering from the devastation of World War II, with hopes of a brighter and more prosperous future. Yet tensions were already brewing, setting the stage for a new conflict, the Cold War. Some argue that the crash was linked to the Soviet Union after the U.S. Army Air Forces reported recovering a flying disc in the deserts of New Mexico. Initial claims suggested it was a weather balloon, possibly carrying radar technology within its lightweight structure. However, nearly 50 years later, in 1994, the U.S. military disclosed that the balloon was part of a classified program called Project Mogul, designed to detect Soviet nuclear tests. We'll dive into Project Mogul later, but for now, let's consider how the narrative shifted from a weather balloon to extraterrestrials. After World War II, nations began to rebuild their lives, communities, and infrastructure. But on the geopolitical stage, tensions were escalating. The United States and the USSR, once allies against Nazi Germany, emerged as rival superpowers with conflicting ideologies and competing military ambitions. This rivalry sparked decades of distrust, nuclear standoffs, and espionage allegations, driving paranoia during the Cold War. The Soviet Union's vast reach, spanning over 22 million square kilometers, more than 7 times the size of India and over twice the size of the United States, intensified fears in America. False alarms about espionage, space race tensions, and military sabotage fueled the climate of suspicion, shaping the narratives around events like Roswell. On June 21, 1947, Navy seaman Harold Dahl and fighter pilot Fred Krisman claimed that Dahl had witnessed 6 unidentified flying objects near Maury Island in Washington state's Puget Sound during a mission to collect logs. Dahl noticed 6 circular sheet-like objects hovering in the sky, about half a mile from his boat. Shortly after, one of the objects fell from the clouds, dropping approximately 1,500 feet. Dahl watched in shock as metallic debris began breaking off the UFO. Some fragments hit his boat, injuring his son and killing the family dog. This prompted Dahl to act quickly. He grabbed his camera and took photographs of the strange objects. Later, he shared them with Krisman, his supervisor, who was initially skeptical of Dahl's account. However, after visiting the site with Dahl, Krisman changed his perspective after seeing the evidence firsthand. This event became known as the Maury Island Incident. What makes this incident so memorable is the strange chain of events that followed the next day. Still reeling from the incident and the loss of his dog, Dahl was approached by a man in an indistinct black suit. According to Gary Barker's 1956 book, They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers, the man invited Dahl to a diner to discuss what had happened. The man in black recounted the events in extraordinary detail, down to the smallest specifics. Dahl, stunned by how much the man seemed to know, tried to reason with him. As Dahl attempted to leave, the man issued a chilling warning. "What I have said is proof to you that I know a great deal more about this experience of yours than you will want to believe." The man instructed Dahl to never speak of the incident again, hinting at dire consequences if he disobeyed. 2 days later, another twist emerged when amateur pilot Kenneth Arnold reported seeing what he described as 9 bow-shaped flying objects near Washington's Cascade Mountains. This marked the first recorded sighting of what came to be known as flying saucers. Arnold's account detailed objects flying in formation at an altitude of 10,000 feet. He compared their motion to the way a saucer skips over water and estimated their speed at 1,900 kilometers per hour, a remarkable claim for the 1940s. Meanwhile, on June 14, 1947, W. Mac Brazel and his son Vernon were traveling across their ranch near Roswell, New Mexico, when they stumbled upon a mysterious wreckage. The debris, glistening in the sunlight, appeared metallic, with fragments scattered across the area. Brazel described the materials as strips of rubber, tinfoil, sturdy paper, and sticks. Unable to determine where it came from, he left the site, but the strange discovery lingered in his thoughts. On July 4th, Brazel returned to find the wreckage still there. Observing the collection of tinfoil, metallic shards, and other materials for a second time reinforced his decision to report it to the authorities and investigate further. 3 days later, the rancher returned with an empty truck, gathered as much of the debris as possible, and loaded it into the vehicle before heading straight to the sheriff's office to meet Sheriff George Wilcox. Despite years of dealing with various incidents and people, Sheriff Wilcox couldn't make sense of the crash or the purpose of the materials Brazel had brought in. After a brief conversation with the rancher, some note-taking, and a quick review of the debris, Wilcox contacted the Roswell Army Airfield 509 Composite Group, a key unit of the United States Air Force based in Roswell. He also reached out to his friend Colonel William Hugh Blanchard, known to many as Butch. Blanchard, born in 1916, later became a four-star general and served as Vice Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force in the mid-1960s. The situation was escalating rapidly. Following his discussion with the sheriff, the materials were transported to the base. Like Wilcox, Blanchard was puzzled by the nature of the wreckage and its possible purpose. Seeking further input, he contacted General Roger W. Ramey, commander of the 8th Air Force in Fort Worth, Texas, for an assessment of the debris and advice on how to proceed. During this process, Blanchard assigned Major Jesse Marcel, an intelligence officer, to accompany Sheriff Wilcox and Mr. Brazel back to the site where the debris was found. Together, they collected the remaining pieces of the wreckage and transported them to the base. Major Marcel then issued a statement to the press, which appeared in the Roswell Daily Record under the headline, "RAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell." The story quickly gained public attention, with the article stating, "The intelligence office of the 509th Bombardment Group and Roswell Army Airfield announced at noon today that the field has come into the possession of a flying saucer." In an attempt to calm the growing excitement and speculation, the military later claimed the object was merely a weather balloon carrying radar equipment. The media echoed this narrative, with the Roswell Morning Dispatch publishing, "Army debunks Roswell flying disc as world simmers with excitement." Roger Launius, a retired curator of space history at the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum, remarked on the conflicting reports, saying, "A flying saucer was easier to admit than Project Mogul." More on that point would surface later. As contradictory reports from the government, military, and press created confusion, interest in the Roswell crash began to fade. With tensions rising during the Cold War, the focus shifted to more pressing matters, and the crash was largely forgotten. However, some remained skeptical, and sightings of UFOs and reports of alien encounters continued. In 1980, the Roswell incident resurfaced with the release of The Roswell Incident, a book by Charles Berlitz and William L. Moore. The authors sought to challenge the official narrative, asserting that the original wreckage was indeed an unidentified flying object. Berlitz and Moore were no strangers to mysterious subjects. A year earlier, they co-authored the Philadelphia Experiment, Project Invisibility, which explored an alleged 1943 naval experiment aboard the USS Eldridge. The book suggested the ship had teleported from Philadelphia to Virginia, despite official naval records denying such an event. Their follow-up book claimed the Roswell wreckage had been transported to Wright Field, now Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, in Ohio for analysis, and that the weather balloon explanation was a deliberate cover story to mislead the public. The release of the Roswell incident sparked renewed interest and conspiracy theories, though it faced heavy criticism from skeptics and academics. Despite its poor reception, the book reignited debate about the Roswell crash, potential government cover-ups, and the unanswered questions surrounding the event. Many believe in the possible existence of a secret society known as Majestic 12, or MJ-12. In 1984, documents surfaced that were claimed to be classified memos about top-secret military operations and the foundation of a new world order. Allegedly, this small group of influential individuals was formed by President Harry S. Truman to oversee various covert operations, including the Roswell incident. There have long been stories about a shadowy elite conspiring, negotiating, and collaborating with beings from beyond Earth. These documents intensified debates about the truth behind Roswell, even though the FBI dismissed them as forgeries. Historian Roger Launius remarked on the growing paranoia, saying, "By that time, people's imaginations had gotten the best of them. Since the resurgence of UFO interest in the 1970s and 1980s, public curiosity about alien phenomena has only grown, fueled further by the internet. Many truth seekers have explored Area 51, the secretive facility within the Nevada test site, located about 80 miles from Las Vegas. Figures like Bob Lazar, who claims to have worked at Area 51 in the late 1980s reverse engineering alien technology, have fueled speculation. Others have shared accounts of alien technologies and beings supposedly transferred to secret bases in 1997, though these were later attributed to parachute test dummies. Until recently, topics like aliens, UFOs, and the supernatural were largely dismissed by the government. However, some individuals claim they were silenced, with accounts of witnesses, scientists, and informants disappearing or dying under mysterious circumstances. To understand the Roswell events, it's important to consider the historical context. These incidents occurred during the early Cold War, a tense period when the U.S. and USSR were locked in competition over nuclear weapons, space exploration, and military superiority. The U.S. conducted nuclear tests at the South Pacific and Nevada test sites, heightening the paranoia of the era. Project Mogul, a top-secret mission, aimed to detect Soviet nuclear tests using high-altitude balloons equipped with sensitive microphones. These balloons, some stretching over 650 feet, were designed to covertly traverse Soviet territory and gather sound wave data. Roger Launius suggested that one of these balloons likely veered off course. Obviously, something happened to this one balloon. It came back to Earth and was probably spread across a wide area, he explained. This incident led to the publicized weather balloon explanation. Despite the official story, skepticism persisted. In 1994, the U.S. Air Force released a report acknowledging that the weather balloon explanation was false, revealing the wreckage to be from espionage equipment linked to Project Mogul. The government's initial cover story aimed to protect national security and prevent public panic. This approach is not uncommon, as many believe that governments, media, and influential figures frequently use misinformation and propaganda to manipulate public perception and maintain control. Belief in and trust for world leaders and their political parties have diminished since the Roswell incident. This topic continues to draw interest from writers like Donald R. Schmitt. Schmitt, a former co-director of the J. Allen Hynek Center for UFO Studies, has authored numerous books about UFOs, extraterrestrial intelligence, Area 51, and, of course, the Roswell incident. As a dedicated UFO researcher and co-founder of the International UFO Museum and Research Center in Roswell, Schmitt has spent over 30 years studying the phenomenon. He has also commented on the Mogul Project cover story. 2 hours west of Roswell, the first atomic bomb was detonated. At the time, atomic research was ongoing at Los Alamos, and testing of captured German V-2 rockets was underway at White Sands. Roswell was home to the first atomic bomb squadron. Given these factors, the idea that any kind of publicity stunt was intentionally orchestrated seems improbable. In fact, they likely wanted less attention. What do you think about this? The Roswell incident has been the subject of countless theories, investigations, and reports over the years. Some explanations are straightforward, while others are so unusual that they challenge belief, making one question their initial skepticism. One such theory is presented in a book by investigative journalist Annie Jacobson titled Area 51, an uncensored history of America's top-secret military base. Jacobson has written extensively on popular conspiracy theories, covering topics like Operation Paperclip, CIA assassins, and the 9/11 attacks. She was also a Pulitzer Prize finalist in 2006. Jacobson's 2011 book on Area 51 brought forward an unconventional claim about Roswell. She alleged that the incident was part of a bizarre operation orchestrated by Joseph Stalin. According to the account, Stalin, in collaboration with Nazi concentration camp Dr. Joseph Mengele, used children and teenagers with deformities from Soviet states for the operation. These individuals were sent to the U.S. in specially crafted aircraft with the intention of being mistaken for extraterrestrial beings. The goal was to incite panic and overwhelm America's early warning radar systems with false UFO sightings. Jacobson's claims are said to have come from an anonymous engineer who worked for EG&G at Area 51. While the theory was widely criticized and deemed implausible by many, some believe it contains a sliver of truth. Jesse Marcel Jr., the son of intelligence officer Jesse Marcel Sr., discussed another perspective in his book, The Roswell Legacy. As a child, Marcel Jr. examined pieces of the wreckage his father brought home before delivering them to his military base. He described seeing markings that resembled geometric symbols, squares, circles, triangles, and pyramids, but no animals or mathematical figures. Could these symbols have been created by children involved in the operation as a way to distract themselves from the fear of their mission? There is no concrete evidence to support such a claim, but history has shown that even the most bizarre theories sometimes contain fragments of truth. Many people are familiar with the life and work of American nuclear physicist and ufologist Stanton T. Friedman. His name is well known within the UFO community, and his contributions to the field are unmatched. In 1978, Friedman spoke with Major Jesse Marcel Sr. about the Roswell crash and the cover-up that followed. Marcel, an intelligence officer, strongly disputed the weather balloon explanation, asserting that everyone involved in recovering the wreckage believed it to be extraterrestrial in origin. Friedman championed this theory throughout his career, sharing it in countless discussions and presentations, despite facing criticism and personal attacks. In the years following his conversation with Marcel, other researchers, investigative journalists, and writers sought to uncover more secrets through their own discreet meetings with former military personnel and scientists. Even today, individuals continue to come forward with new claims about Roswell, Area 51, and other unexplained events. Figures like Dr. Stephen Greer have played a role in pushing for greater transparency. But the ultimate truth about the Roswell incident still hinges on those with first-hand knowledge willing to present their evidence and theories. For now, the Roswell mystery remains unresolved, despite some treating the weather balloon explanation as definitive. Whether it was a standard balloon or part of Project Mogul's advanced spy technology is still debated. This explanation might clarify the initial confusion and the swift response from military authorities at the time. 50 years after the incident, a government investigation stated that none of the original reports mentioned alien bodies or creatures. Jesse Marcel himself denied that part of the story. However, the U.S. Air Force addressed the issue, suggesting that some people had conflated the crash with tests involving anthropomorphic crash dummies, which were dropped from the sky for research purposes. Over the years, Roswell has turned into a commercial hub, with museums, shops, and events drawing thousands of visitors annually. The mystery, along with that of Area 51, has become a lucrative enterprise. In 2021, nearly 65 years after the crash, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence released a preliminary report confirming that most UFO sightings remain unexplained, leaving the Roswell enigma as compelling as ever. In today's world, marked by conflict and uncertainty, spy balloons have made headlines once again. Between January 28th and February 4th, 2023, a high-altitude balloon operated by China was detected and monitored as it passed over North American airspace. Reports indicated that the balloon traveled across Alaska, parts of Western Canada, and several U.S. states. Under President Joe Biden's orders, the U.S. Air Force eventually shot down the balloon when it reached South Carolina. The wreckage was recovered and sent to the FBI's laboratories in Virginia for analysis. Military officials from both the U.S. and Canada confirmed that the balloon, initially speculated to be extraterrestrial in origin, was used by the Chinese government for covert surveillance and intelligence gathering. Analysis revealed that the balloon had advanced capabilities, including geolocating electronic communications and high-tech surveillance tools. While some criticized the U.S. Air Force for allowing the balloon to travel so far, authorities explained that they had been tracking it for some time and determined it originated from Hainan, a Chinese island province. The incident has added strain to an already tense relationship between Western nations and China. Similar balloons have since been spotted over Alaska, Canada, and parts of Latin America, further escalating concerns. Could this mark a new era of global tension, with advanced technologies being used under the pretense of weather balloons or UFOs? Only time will tell. As history has shown us, particularly with incidents like Roswell, things are rarely as they seem. This brings us to the close of this episode of Destination Declassified. Our world faces numerous challenges, including climate change, nuclear threats, and rapid advancements in AI, leaving societies increasingly wary and divided. Events like the Roswell incident have fueled decades of speculation and mistrust, reflecting our deep desire for truth, while often overlooking the immediate priorities in life. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this episode as intriguing as I did. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. See you next time.